Hope your year is off to a great start. Welcome to the program. I'm Min San-hee with our panel of foreign journalists. It's good to see you all again.
Good to be back, thanks.
Well, at the center of much attention in the global financial market in recent years is the virtual currency Bitcoin. We have details in our first report. In the second half of 2017, Bitcoin took the global financial industry by storm. In 2017, the price of Bitcoin increased more than 1,600%, fueling greater interest in the virtual currency market. The price of Bitcoin, which was $1,100 in January 2017, surged close to $20,000 in December 2017. There are several reasons for this surge. First, in April of 2017, Japan, which boasts the highest trade volume of Bitcoin in the world, legalized Bitcoin, increasing the trade volume significantly. In addition, the supply of Bitcoin is limited to 21 million coins, and as demand soared, prices also rose. The popularity of Bitcoin is even greater in Korea. On January 2, 2017, the price of Bitcoin, which was traded at 121,000 won in Korea, soared to 24.8 million won on December 8th. Korea ranks third in the world in Bitcoin trading volume, following Japan and the United States. In line with the popularity of Bitcoin, critics are calling for caution and regulation. However, industry insiders argue that institutionalization should come before taxation.
암호화폐 자체를 지금처럼 경원시하고 불법화하면서 세금을 걷는다라는 건 논리적 모순이겠죠.
Will the Bitcoin craze continue in 2018? The panel of foreign correspondents will seek to answer this question and more. Now, as I mentioned in the report, the popularity of Bitcoin in Korea is soaring, especially following talks about successful investments and having made profits. Have you, Frank, invested in any virtual currency market?
No, I haven't purchased any Bitcoin. I feel like I'm a bit late now. If I was to buy some Bitcoin now, it's increased in value so much just in the last couple of months. You know, right now, Bitcoin I don't think is really functioning the way that I think it was intended by its creators. It's being seen right now as a very speculative, risky investment. And I think Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general, especially Bitcoin, is meant to be more of a method of conducting transactions, to be used as cash, not as a speculative investment, and to be used as foreign exchange so that people in other countries can send money to and from each other, or send value to and from each other without the exorbitant fees that we see now being charged by banks. When you go to transfer money overseas at a bank, you have to pay the transfer charge, and then you have to pay the exchange rate because you're moving money from one currency into another currency. When that exchange takes place with Bitcoin, you're not paying either one of those fees really, and a lot of money can be saved. But right now what we see happening with Bitcoin is it's being seen as a speculative, risky, and so far, for most people, I guess, profitable investment.
And we'll get into that later. Stan, what's the response to virtual currency in Russia? What is the public response to it? Because here in Korea, it's really popular.
Oh, it's got very big this year in Russia also. There used to be some Bitcoin mines before, but it was not so widely spread. Since this year, the Bitcoin was all over the news. That became a real business, and a lot of people just buying those powerful computers and start mining. Personally, I know 2 or 3 people, good friends of mine, who do that. And thus the prices of the video graphics cards, which are used for, for mining Bitcoin, have drastically soared in Russia. Like the price increased 2- or 3-fold this year, and it's almost impossible to buy this powerful video card now. Some people were even selling their apartments and would invest all the money into Bitcoins.
Which is why also here in Korea they're calling for the need for regulations, perhaps to avoid such scenarios. It's really popular in Japan, right? Because Japan is probably the first country that legalized it, Bitcoin.
Yes, yes. Last year, 2017, April, they amended the Service Payment Act to allow cryptocurrency to use for legal payment.
What's the public response to that legalization?
I think, well, I noticed about cryptocurrency was 2014, and it was a Japanese company run by a French man was bankrupt, and millions of dollars just disappeared. So for most of the Japanese, the cryptocurrency is related to the image of fraud and bankrupt and missing of the huge amounts of money. So the initially image was not good, but recently there is a risk, but quite many people see some future on cryptocurrency, so we should at least touch it or deal with it. Yeah, that's the image we have.
What's the public view like in Canada, Frank?
Well, I think they're going for Bitcoin in a big way. Recently, a Canadian financial company invested tens of millions of dollars in a Bitcoin mine in Iceland to increase their blockchain production. And this is, again, a financial capital company. So these are older investors with gray hairs that came along a long time after. And I looked at their corporate profiles and I saw, the financial backers of this joint venture are older gentlemen, and then the people that are involved in the Bitcoin expertise and the blockchain production are younger people, and I believe Icelandic people that are involved in the actual production. When you see bankers getting involved in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, you can count on that trend to be something that's going to be accepted eventually by regulators. It's not something that's going to be, I believe, banned by governments or in any way undermined by governments. It's going to be accepted because of the tens of millions of dollars that are going into this Bitcoin blockchain mining. So that's a very interesting trend to see that the Bitcoin mining develop. And then you also have some pools developing where you have smaller blockchain producers, Bitcoin makers, let's say, that can set up a smaller sort of infrastructure to produce the blockchain Bitcoin infrastructure, let's call it. And then they join a pool of other people in other Bitcoin mines, warehouses with computers that produce this cryptocurrency. And together they produce the Bitcoin and share the profits of that production. This is another element that I think adds to the attractiveness of Bitcoin, that smaller producers can get involved.
In one article last December, Bloomberg called Korea a sort of ground zero for the global crypto mania. What do you suppose is fueling the high interest in virtual currency here in Korea?
Well, I think, Koreans, they love the stock market. They love the Kosdaq. It's a very active and volatile market. Bitcoin is designed for, in terms of its aspect as a speculative investment, it's a perfect fit for South Korea. South Korea's stock market is viewed as that kind of, new economy, again, very volatile, cutting edge, tech-centered market, tech-centered exchange. So Bitcoin is really a perfect fit for that type of investor.
What are your thoughts, Dan?
Yeah, I think it's a good possibility to capitalize on that. And considering like the high rate of youth unemployment, and I think a lot of youth are going into that Bitcoin business. So probably it's one of the ways for them to raise some money on that, to earn their living.
Right, because there are Korean teenagers who are also investing in Bitcoin. Is it the same in Japan?
Yeah, I think so, but because there are a new type of cryptocurrency related to game, the computer game. So some children are, I think, buying such currency.
Now, the functions of money include it serves as a medium of exchange, it's a measure of value, it's a store of value, it's a unit of account, the basic of credit, and of course the standard postponement payment. Those are the functions of money, some of the functions. Keeping these functions in mind, what are the chances of virtual currency becoming a real currency, being treated as such in the future?
I think it already is. I think it's just a matter of time how widespread it will become. That will be the big challenge, is are you going to see more and more retailers and wholesalers and employers paying for goods and services using Bitcoin? Once that takes off, then the question of whether it will be a valid replacement or another type of money will be easier to answer.
In Japan, already a travel agency HIS and a big electric retailer called Big Camera started to accept cryptocurrency as a payment in last year, 2000.
It does have the power to become the currency of the future then?
Yeah.
I see. How would you feel, Stan, about being paid in Bitcoin, for example, your salary, your wage?
I wouldn't be comfortable with that. As far as I know, that Russian government is right now, they're thinking about imposing some limitations on Bitcoin, and they're definitely not going to recognize it as a money or as a currency, but only as an investment instrument. They're not going to allow the common people to buy it more than some certain amount, let's say about $1,000. Yeah. So the Russian central bank continues to warn people that Bitcoin might be a bubble, and they just don't want people to lose their money. But we'll see how it works. Yeah.
And keeping that concern in mind, in this next report, we take a look at the challenges involved in transforming virtual currency into legal tender.
Within the past year, the value of Bitcoin has surged dramatically. But there are still many hurdles to tackle before Bitcoin is recognized as real currency. The first problem is that Bitcoin is extremely volatile. Bitcoin was created in January of 2009. At the time, the price of Bitcoin was $0. Then in August 2010, the price of Bitcoin rose to 6 cents. In December 2013, the price broke the $1,000 mark, but eventually dropped down to $177 in January 2015. 2 years later, in 2017, it once again broke the $1,000 mark, and the price continued to soar from there. On December 17th last year, Bitcoin's price surged past the $20,000 mark just after it was first introduced to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the world's largest derivatives exchange. But on the same day, it fell to $18,000. Experts assert the price fluctuation makes Bitcoin an unstable currency. Another issue to worry about is the risk of hacking. Blockchain, a trading system used in Bitcoin, is known to be practically impossible to hack, but the situation in trading sites is different. On December 19th, Korea's virtual currency exchange site, Ubit, filed for bankruptcy as a result of hacking. The loss due to hacking stood at about 17 billion won, which was 17% of the total assets of the company. Compensation has been promised, but concerns among consumers remains. Some foreign media outlets raised suspicions that North Korea may be behind the hacking. The Wall Street Journal reported that Korean investigators are investigating a possible North Korean involvement in Bitcoin transactions. In addition, there are those who feel uneasy amid the lack of a currency issuer or a management body like the central bank of each country. At the same time, there is no price limit like stock trading, and the 24-hour trading breeds more Bitcoin addicts who focus only on the Bitcoin price fluctuations. the rise in value of Bitcoin is paving the path to the rise in problems as well.
Now, aside from the Russian government, like Stan claimed, experts have also called for caution with regard to Bitcoin. What are your views regarding these words of caution? We'll start with you, Koichi.
Well, by nature, the Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is supposed to be free from government regulation. So it's by nature, it's something you have to buy with your own risk. So what we should know is about this risk. And if you know that risk, then you can buy them. Yeah, that's my view. So I don't think government should regulate. Each government should regulate to this, buying and selling of this Bitcoin.
I see. What are your thoughts, Dan?
I also think so. Well, first of all, it would be really difficult for governments to regulate that, right? Because it's not concentrated in one country. It's spread all over the world. And that's another question, how the big brother can just watch how much Bitcoins you have bought. The other concern is that the Bitcoins being or any of cryptocurrency being decentralized could be used for many kinds of illicit activities, such as drug dealing or weapons selling. That should be of concern.
Right.
I agree with Stan a little bit here, but we need to recognize who is making these criticisms of Bitcoin. They're coming from the government, number one, which is viewing this as a method with which people exchanging funds can avoid taxation, right? And then you're hearing it from big bankers that are viewing this as a threat to them, as something that's going to cut them out of the foreign exchange, as I mentioned. So they're going to say, oh, Bitcoin might go down to zero at some point. But what you're also seeing is other bankers that are getting in on it. So it's interesting to see this kind of development, but you need to look at who is making those criticisms. The one thing about Bitcoin that I view in terms of the taxation is it may be, again, a threat to the ability of governments to tax transactions. And that might take a bite out of the amount of tax that a government can gain and use, for social welfare purposes. So, I don't view taxation as this big negative aspect. I view it as necessary to support a social democratic state. And if you take that away, the taxation ability out of government's hands, away from the government, then you reduce its ability to provide services to the public. So I view that as a little bit of a threat there as well. But in terms of the banking sector, I don't mind if Bitcoin took some money out of bankers' pockets.
Some critics are comparing the popularity of virtual currencies to past economic bubbles. The more poignant example is that of the tulip mania in the 17th century, when Dutch speculators bought and sold tulip bulbs for prices that were unsustainable, of course, because they surged, and then later they plunged when demand dried up. What are your thoughts regarding this comparison, Koichi?
Both of them, tulip and the cryptocurrencies are a result of innovation, and both are supported by early adopters. So in that sense, there is a similarity. But I think cryptocurrency has a more deeper and broader impact on the history of the economy.
What are your thoughts, Dan?
Well, if we take a deeper look into the cryptocurrencies, the concern is that they're not based on any real value, right? On gold or oil, gas, whatever. It costs as much as people are ready to pay for that. And it might be a sign of it being a bubble, but I'm not sure.
Only time will tell then,
yeah,
right?
the time will show.
Yeah, I agree with Stan. It's really a pure symbol. It's a purer symbol even than cash is. It's not really related to any concept of the cost of production or industrial use like gold and silver. They have some industrial uses. Even diamonds have some industrial use. That might be the best analogy with diamonds, in that they have a limited industrial use. Most the value of diamond is really generated in its perception in the public. It's really mostly a symbol, and I think that's true certainly of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin at this point.
Extending legal tender to Bitcoin, like I mentioned in the report, is rendered difficult in light of the possibility of volatility of this virtual currency and, of course, the possibility of hacking. Aside from these two problems, are there any other hurdles?
Money laundering, yeah, that's another.
Which would require then government regulations.
Yeah, government regulations.
Although you oppose them.
Or some system to, protect the people's right from these criminal activity.
And speaking of hacking, North Korea, as seen in the report, has been accused of attempting to hack a popular virtual currency platform called Ubit here in Korea. What are your thoughts, Frank?
Yeah, a lot of these hacks that have taken place, they just, the default is that it was North Korea. And then later on, some other experts investigate what happened, and they're like, well, we're not really sure it was North Korea. And that part of the story doesn't get as much noise as the initial story that blamed North Korea for whatever hack that it is that's taken place. Certainly, entities around the world are going to target cryptocurrency and try to hack into Bitcoin exchanges and obtain people's passwords and people's accounting information on Bitcoin, just like they do for other banking that takes place around the world. That's gonna keep happening, and this is just another target for those individuals.
Yeah, I think the problem with hacking of cryptocurrencies, of course, the cryptocurrency run much more risk than having your money at the bank. Because the bank is insured, right? If they got stolen, the money from the bank got stolen, you can get some of them back. But if they steal the money from your, say, crypto wallet, you're not getting anything back.
Recently, Japanese banks started to insure their cryptocurrency, so it would be safer.
Oh, that's great news.
Yes. And going back to the North Korea issue, then yeah, you're all right. Just I don't. It might be a North Korean, it might be not. But I believe that they have an ability to do that, and there are some schools in Pyongyang that train the computer genius, and there are many computer genius, and I actually met one of them, and so they are really good, and they have of course, a purpose to gain foreign currency. Always there are shortage of foreign currency. So there are many other hacking groups, but it could be some of them are from North Korea.
And of course, the mere presence of such schools probably raises speculation and suspicions that it may be North Korea. What does the future hold for our bills and coins, Frank?
Well, I hope bills and coins are still around. I think there'll still be a localized underground economy will still always kind of exist. But looking to generations in the future, I'm sure that this type of currency will be something much more prominent and much more used by people.
Stan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the banknotes will be around for another 10 to 15 years, but in this period of time we're going to see the dawn of it. The society would switch to whatever the electronic money, the Visa, or maybe even the cryptocurrencies. So I think the cash will still be around, but it will significantly decrease.
Koichi?
I think so. Even in Korea, right now, I don't carry any coins because Korea is a credit card country, so everything you can buy with a credit card. And also in China, this mobile payment service is spreading, and it will coming over to Korea and Japan, so there will be a less and less bills and coins we will see.
I see. Right, virtual currency Now, critics claim that it's a marketing stunt introduced at a time when global interest in financial technology has never been higher. Others call it a speculative financial instrument, while some insist it holds the power to become the currency of the future. Well, like I said earlier, only time will tell. Thank you for watching.